A young woman leaves the life she knows and travels the road between innocence and choice. On that journey, the Marchlands will show her what can happen to those who are observed, assessed, and priced.
Eelpond was not a place that held on to things. It shed them, slowly. The pond itself sat in the middle of it all, and people still called it Eelpond because their grandparents had, yet no one Liora had ever met could remember seeing an eel in its dark water. In summer it went stagnant, with a skin of green clinging to the edges, and in winter it solidified into grey ice. It was useful as a landmark, nothing more. Liora stood on the bank after the rain and watched the water. Damp had settled into everything, and the pond smelled differently. She crouched and pressed her fingers into the mud at the edge, wondering why it was always there. She had always been told, in one way or another, that she noticed too much. "You'll worry yourself thin," Mariam said whenever Liora asked why the pond level had dropped in a week without heat enough to drink it away. "It isn't worry," Liora had answered. "It's seeing, noticing." Mariam had sighed and set a bowl down. "Call it what you like. You don't have to name every crack in the wall." But Liora did, because a crack named was a crack you could not pretend away. On the morning she meant to leave, she did not stand at the pond for long. She took in the smell of it to make sure she would remember, then turned away. She prepared simply and packed what she owned, along with some bread and cheese. She rinsed her hair in cold water, braided it back, and then sat at the small table while Mariam moved around her, pretending that this day was like any other, until that became impossible. "I'm not leaving because I'm angry," Liora said. "I know," Mariam replied. She stared at the table, hoping it might show her something. "I just don't want you to go chasing a hard life for the sake of proving you can bear it." Liora held a cup of ale between her hands. "I'm going to Faelen's watch because Isava is there." Mariam looked up. "And if she isn't?" "She left here for length and wound up in that awful hovel at the city's edge with some tutor to begin with." She turned the question over. "If she isn't, I'll find somewhere else where people speak truth." Mariam sighed. "You sound just like her," she said. Liora did not ask Mariam to explain. People in the hamlet spoke of Isava in tones that changed depending on who was listening. They liked to say, "She chose her path," in the same voice one might use for, "She chose her sickness." Two others came by before she left. Red Jack, so called because of his distinctive cap, who lived with his bitterness like a second skin, and Hester, who made bread that Liora knew she would miss. Jack stood in the doorway and looked at Leora's satchel. "Road'll chew you up," he said. "No hello or how are you? You think you're better than the mud under your feet, do you?" Liora met him head on. "No, I think the mud under my feet is telling me something, and I'm tired of pretending it isn't." Jack coughed. "Oh, you'll get your telling. Out there, folk will tell you with fists and knives, and worse." "Maybe," Liora said. "Or maybe they'll tell me with truth." "Truth," Jack echoed, as if it were a ridiculous luxury. He spat into the yard, wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, and added, less harshly, "If you've got coin, don't show it. If you've got food, don't flash it. If a man offers you help, ask yourself what he wants from it, and be certain it's something you want to give. Hester hugged her like she meant to press some warmth into her bones for later. "Don't sleep near the road," she muttered into Liora's hair. "And don't let anyone talk you out of what you know. They'll call it pride. It isn't. It's yours." Liora felt tears rise, but she held them back. "Thank you, Hester." Mariam walked with her as far as the first turning, where the lane stopped being a hamlet path and became the road that led away. There, Mariam halted and held out a small bundle wrapped in cloth. "Take this," she said. Liora unfolded it. Inside was dried apple and a small packet of salt. "I don't—" "Take it," Mariam insisted. "It's good to have salt when you're tired, and everything tastes like nothing." Liora tied the bundle into her satchel. "I'll come back," she said, because it was the thing Mariam needed to hear, and because it was not a lie in the immediate sense. She did not know what she would do. Mariam touched Liora's cheek with the back of her fingers. "Don't come back because you feel guilty, girl. If you come back because you still want to." Liora nodded, turned, and walked away. At first, the road was familiar. It ran between hedges and small fields. The earth there was ploughed, drained where it could be drained, and pushed into yielding. The trees were kept at bay, cut back to keep their shadow from stealing the crops. By midday, the road widened, and the land began to rise and undulate. She passed a farmer walking his cart in the opposite direction. He glanced at her and slowed. "Where are you bound?" he asked. His voice had the roughness of someone who spoke mostly to animals. "Faelen's watch," Liora said. He made a face. "Why?" "I've reason," Liora replied. "Aye, and so do folk who end up with less than they started with." He clicked his tongue at his horse, then paused. "They'll fill your head with things there. They'll teach you to look at the world as if it's all rot under the bark." "Maybe there is rot," she said. "Maybe it's better to know where it is than pretend the tree is sound." He smiled. "You're young. You'll learn." "I am young," Liora agreed. "And I'm learning now." Now he frowned, with that irritation people felt when their warnings were not accepted as gifts. "Your people let you go alone?" Liora heard the question beneath the question. "They didn't stop me," she answered. "Well," he spat to the side, "don't say no one told you." He tugged the reins and the cart rolled on. Liora watched him go and felt a small, grim satisfaction. She had not argued for the sake of winning. She had argued because truth mattered to her more than comfort. If a man could not bear that, it was not her job to soften it for him. As the afternoon stretched, she walked through patches of scrub where birds darted in and out of cover. She found herself noticing their behaviour, how they kept to the thicker growth when a hawk circled high, how they fell silent all at once when something moved beyond sight. She stopped once to watch a line of ants carrying pale eggs from a flooded nest to higher ground. No one told them to do it. They just naturally responded to what was. Liora envied their simple logic. Toward evening, she came upon another traveller, a man with a pack and a staff, walking at an easy pace. He was older than her, with hair bound back and a scar across his chin. When he drew level, he nodded, the brief acknowledgement of someone who neither feared her nor assumed she was harmless. "Evening," he said. "Evening," Liora replied. He matched his pace to hers without asking, as though it were the natural thing. "You're alone," he observed. "My, how observant." "So are you," Liora said. He gave a short laugh. Fair. His eyes moved to her satchel, then her boots. Where to? Faelen's watch. His brows rose. That's so. Yes. He walked a few steps in silence, then said, I've heard of it. So has everyone, Liora said, and regretted her tone. She did not want to sound so impertinent. He did not take offence. Aye, that's true. Folk talk about places they don't understand, as if talk makes them safe. Liora glanced at him. There was something in his voice that was not quite mockery, not quite respect. Curiosity, perhaps. Where are you going? She asked. Wherever the road takes me, he replied, and the words sounded rehearsed, the sort of thing men said to make themselves appear free. Liora did not hide her skepticism. That's not a destination. He smiled again, more openly. You've got a way of cutting through fluff. I don't like fluff, she said. No. He looked ahead. I'm heading north, mostly. There's work in the towns this time of year. Repairing roofs, helping with harvest, that sort. That's better, Liora said. Aye, it is. He hesitated, then offered, Name's Callan. Liora. Liora, Callan repeated. Not from a town, then? Eelpond, she said. He made a small sound of recognition. By the stagnant water. Liora grimaced. That's the one. They walked together until dusk came. Liora did not dislike the company, but she stayed alert. Red Jack's warning sat in her mind. If a man offers you help, ask yourself what he wants from it. Callan asked casually, You've got family at the watch? A half-sister, Liora said. She heard herself reveal it and wondered why. Perhaps because she wanted it to be ordinary, spoken aloud, not held like a secret. Ah, he said, and you're going to find her? Yes. Does she know you're coming? No, she admitted. Callan made a thoughtful sound. Could be she won't thank you for it. Liora looked at him. I'm not going for thanks. Then he said, You'll want to find a place to bed down soon. There's a copse ahead, off the road. Might be dry under the trees. Liora slowed. The idea of stepping off the road with a man she had met only that day made her uneasy. Callan noticed the hesitation and lifted his hands slightly, palms open. You don't have to, he said. Just thought I'd tell you. Folk camp by the road and wake up lighter. I know, Liora said. He nodded. Fair enough. He kept walking. After a few more steps, he glanced back. I'm taking it anyway. You want to keep going? You keep going. Liora watched him veer toward the copse, not into it directly, but along its edge, checking it first. She waited until he disappeared among the trees, then continued down the road a distance, far enough that the copse behind would not conceal him if he followed. He did not. When she was sure, she turned off the road herself, choosing a different patch of scrub where low bushes grew thick and a few trees stood. It was not comfortable, and there was only a little shelter from the larger tree, but it was hers, chosen without help or influence. She ate a little bread and cheese, drank sparingly, and wrapped herself in her cloak. The night sounds were louder away from the hamlet, and she lay awake longer than she wanted, but eventually settled. In the early hours, she woke to the sound of footsteps. She remained quiet and listened, keeping her body still. The steps were on the road, but not near her. A wagon came by, slowed, turned, and rolled into the softer ground. A horse snorted, and Liora decided to investigate. From the direction of the copse, where Callan had bedded down, a lantern now lit the night. Liora eased herself away from the makeshift camp, circling wide so that the light would not catch her. Wet leaves clung to her cloak and earth to her boots, but she let them. She heard Callan before she saw him, and his voice was strange now. The easy lilt he had used earlier was gone. What replaced it was flatter, the voice of a man explaining himself to someone whose approval mattered to him. "I had the opportunity," he said, "at the copse. She trusted me enough." Another voice answered him, and it was different. It was calm, educated, and a little impatient. When Liora edged far enough to see, she caught the second man briefly in the lantern light. His black robe swallowed what little illumination there was, and his whole figure bent forward. His face was knotted, and his hands moved carefully, fingers faintly stained. "You're certain you did nothing," the man said. Callan hesitated just long enough to tell the truth without sounding ashamed. "I thought about it," he admitted. "I was tempted, but it wasn't worth the spoilage." The word lodged in Liora's chest like a hook. There was neither rebuke nor anger from the hunched man. His only concern was procedure. "Purity matters," the man said. "You know that. Compromised material produces nothing I can use, and I do not have the time to waste. The name Dr. Tarius Prent means quality in certain circles, and I mean it to stay that way. I'm not the only abjurist in the market, Callan." "I know, Dr. Prent," Callan said. "That's why I waited. She's untouched. She travels alone. No question in my mind. This is a clean acquisition." Prent considered this in the way a merchant might consider grain or cloth. "And she's still where you left her?" "Yes." And there it was. No threat and no urgency, just two wicked men of the Marchlands and their assumptions. Prent spoke of blood like it were oil or ink. His wards required consistency, and strength failed when shortcuts were taken. His clients were always satisfied. They never asked questions and only cared about the quality. He remarked almost idly that his current stock was dwindling and that opportunities like this were becoming harder to arrange without attracting attention. They spoke of timing and agreed to secure the merchandise before the road stirred at dawn. Liora understood then that nothing sudden and violent needed to happen for her life to be redirected. She had already been accounted for and given a duration by these two skunks. She withdrew the way she had come, moving very slowly and very carefully, and only when the cops no longer carried their voices did she speed up and head away from that place. Before leaving, she took a knife from her pack and knelt before the trunk that marked her camp. She carved something into the bark and then left. Liora stayed off the road and changed direction when she could, putting ground between herself and those men and the night. From that moment on, the road ceased to be neutral. Every sound carried possibility, and every cartwheel was counted. Later, when she was long gone, Callan returned to the copse with Prent. Her absence struck them first, followed quickly by the failure of their assumption that she would remain still. Then Prent noticed the tree, his attention caught by paler wood showing against the grey bark. He cackled, nodded, and turned to Callan. "You fool." The carving was clean and recent, a single word cut deep enough to be read for a while. Wrong. Somewhere ahead of them, already beyond reach, Liora kept moving, but faster now, listening behind her as well as ahead. Her world now altered forever by the knowledge that she had been priced and valued for her body and nothing else. As she hurried along, the land altered again. The road narrowed, and the hedges gave way to stands of trees that were no longer planted in neat lines. The earth here was darker, and ferns grew thick in the ditches. A narrow stream crossed the road, swollen with rain. Liora crouched and watched the water for a moment before attempting to cross. She chose a spot where the bank held and jumped. Her foot landed on wet grass and slid a little, but she caught herself. She laughed, and it felt good, the small success of trusting her own judgment, adding some welcome confidence. Further on, she came to a small holding where a woman was hanging linen on a line strung between posts. The woman's hands were red with cold. A child watched from the doorway, thumb in mouth. The woman saw Liora and greeted her warily. "Morning," she called. "Morning," Liora replied. "You're a long way from home," the woman said, eyeing her. It was not unfriendly, but it was reserved. "I'm going to Faelen's watch," Liora said. The woman nodded and smiled. "Then you're further than you think." "I know where it is," Liora said. "Aye, and do you know what it is?" The woman shook out a sheet with a snap that sounded like a warning. "They'll take your head and fill it with their ways. Folk go to that place and come back strange." "Maybe folk go there and come back honest," Liora said. The woman snorted. "Honest is just another word for difficult." "Then I'm in the right place," Liora replied. The woman considered her for a moment. "You've got the look of someone who won't be turned." Liora did not deny it. The woman sighed and reached into a basket by her feet, pulling out a small round of bread, still warm. "Take that," she said abruptly. "Not because I agree with whatever folly you're on, because you'll need to eat, and I couldn't send a girl off hungry." Liora hesitated as her suspicion rose. Then she saw the child watching, wide-eyed, and the woman's hands, cracked and raw from work. There was no cunning here, only practicality and a grudging human impulse. "Thank you," she said, and took the bread. The woman nodded, satisfied that she had done what she felt she must, then turned back to her linen, closing the exchange. By afternoon, the weather broke again. Rain came down in a steady curtain. Liora pulled her hood up and kept going. She ate the bread as she walked, letting it fill her with something steadier than determination. She did not meet many people now. The road felt more solitary. When she did pass someone, they kept their distance, heads down. Liora didn't mind. Solitude on the road was simpler than solitude in a hamlet full of eyes, or, as she now knew, the wrong companion. Near dusk, she saw a small shelter set back from the road, an overhang of rock with a dry patch beneath. It was not much, but it was enough to keep the worst of the rain off. She approached it cautiously, checking for signs that someone else may have already claimed it, but there were none, so she took it. She built no fire. The rain would have made it hard, and any light would be a beacon. So she wrapped herself in her cloak and sat with her back against the stone, her knees drawn up. She listened to the rain drumming on rock and leaves. In the darkness, her thoughts drifted to Isavar again. She tried to remember the exact sound of her voice. Memory was a tricky thing. It smoothed edges and filled gaps. Liora did not want a softened Isavar. She wanted the real one, the one who had left because she would not accept the hamlet's smallness as her fate. There had been a day, years ago, when Liora had followed Isavar down to the pond. Isavar had been older then, almost grown, and she had stood on the bank and stared at the water. "It's dead," she had said. "It's water," Liora had replied. Isavar had looked at her with eyes like flint. "It's water that doesn't move. It's water that holds filth and stink and calls it tradition. Never learn to live like that, Liora." She had not understood it fully then, but she certainly understood now. Sleep came in broken pieces. She woke once to the sound of a twig snapping and froze, listening. A shadow moved at the edge of her shelter, probably an animal drawn by her scent. She held still until the sound faded, but when she finally slept again, it was shallow. In the morning, the rain had eased. Mist hung over the road, turning the world into layers of grey. She stretched and then stepped back onto the road with a quiet insistence. Late in the afternoon, she caught sight of smoke in the distance, rising above the tree line. She paused and watched it a moment. Work, she thought. People. A place that did not pretend to be simple. She found another traveller on the road, this one a young man with a bundle slung over his shoulder. When he saw Liora, he slowed, relief evident upon his face. "Faelen's watch," he blurted, as if the words had been trapped in him. "Is it close?" Liora looked at him. His cheeks were hollow and his eyes anxious. He was younger than she had first thought, barely past boyhood. "Why?" she asked. He blinked. I've heard they take people in, that they help." "Help? How?" Liora asked, having learned that vague words often hid heavier truths. "I don't want to go back," he admitted. "Home, it's not good." Liora did not want to carry someone else's story. The outline of her own journey was simple. Adding another could turn it into something else. "It's close," she said. "A day, maybe less." "Ah, thank you." He hesitated, then said, "Are you going there too?" "Yes." He looked at her with something like hope. "Can I—" "No," Liora said, gently but firmly. "I travel better alone." His face fell, and shame flashed, then anger. "Right," he muttered, as if she had proven something he already believed about the world. Liora kept her voice calm. "Look, if you're going there, go. If you need to ask strangers for permission to keep moving, the road is going to eat you." He stared at her for a moment. "You sound like my mother," he said bitterly. "Then maybe your mother's right about something," Liora replied, and felt no guilt for it. She did not have time to be soft for the sake of being liked. The young man huffed, then adjusted his bundle and started walking again, faster than before. Liora watched him go. The world did not owe him gentleness any more than it did her. She knew that for certain now. As evening approached, the trees thinned slightly and the land rose. In the distance, partly obscured by trees, she saw it, not in some grand mythical revelation, but as a real place with structures. A watchtower, perhaps, or the remnants of one, and lower buildings clustered nearby. Faelen's watch, at last. The sight did not fill her with wonder. This was not a storybook place where problems dissolved into wisdom. It looked like work, disagreement, and people who argued because the stakes were real. A place where no one would tell her, "Don't name every crack in the wall." She realized then that she had been holding something through her entire journey without admitting it. Her innocence, not in the sense of purity, but in the sense of being able to say that she had never truly chosen. Standing there, with her destination in sight, she could not pretend any longer. The decision was hers entirely. One step forward, and she would be someone who had walked toward hard truths with open eyes, and that could not be taken from her. Liora closed her eyes briefly and let it wash over her. She remembered Mariam's hand on her cheek, Hester's bread, and Red Jack's bitter warning. She recalled Callan's easy smile and later deception, and Prent's evil intent. Yet neither would she forget the woman hanging linen, giving bread out of stubborn decency, nor the ants carrying their eggs to higher ground. Truths small and large, stitched into her journey. When she opened her eyes again, the watch was still there, unchanged by her reflections. It did not care about her doubts, and it would not soften itself for her arrival, though Liora had never wanted to be preserved by comfort. She would rather be changed by truth.
Fear thrives where lives are left small and decisions are postponed. Making a choice and taking action does not, as we have seen here, erase danger, but it strips fear of its power by refusing it the time to grow.